Alright, 411 automatic brake valve. This covers disassembly, cleaning, inspection, repair, and assembly test. Toolkit SC49497CLE12. Equipment condition reference. Paragraph 346. Material parts. Dry clean, silver, pneumatic grease, memory cloth, power graphite, lubricating oil, lime-based grease, automatic brake valve move. Warning. Valve assembly are under spring load due to the caution disassemble the procedure with no parts fly over the out, causing injury to personnel. Note, when removing the repairing brake valve with the component, check airline pipe with the corrosion brake with the split loose connection, repair with the airline's pipe with the plate with the defective pipelines or connection. Deuterium 55 22 10 22 3 24P with the identification pipe. Place handle with the 3 with the handle off position. Remove the retaining socket holder screw 1, washer 2. Remove the handle. Move the 2 socket hand screw 4 with the quadrant 5 with the cam housing 22. Torque regulating valve adjusting valves handle 6. Release tension adjusting spring 68. This shows your automatic brake valve. Press cutoff valve with control valve knob 8 with the cutout position, then turn 45 degrees. Move with the 3 screen 7, then with the return of the cutout valve with the control knob with the cutout position. Move with the spring 9, insignia plate with the 11, the cutout valve operating shaft 10. Remove the retaining ring 12. Remove the cutout pilot valve position selector plug 13. Remove the O-ring from the plug. Disassembly continue. Remove the cutoff valve to 15. Remove the O-ring 16 from the valve with the 2 spoiler check valve with the cap nut 17. Remove the 2 rings 18. Inserting 1/16 of the inch rod into the hole spill over check valve with the cap nuts. Press inward retaining ring. Remove the retaining rings. Remove the take check valve with the 19 2 spring 20. Remove the 5 nuts 21. Separate cam housing 22 with the brake valve 23. Remove the camshaft 24. Remove the air valve cam 25. Regulating valve 26 with the suppression valve cam 27 with the vent valve cam 28. Remove the pin and 29 cam dog 30. Remove the gasket 31, 32 with the and 32. Remove the mounting face from the brake valve body 23. Remove the 2 cylindrical spring pins 33 with the 2 cam dogs 34 with the 2 cam from cam pin 35. Remove the 4 nuts 36 with the cover with 37 with the gasket 38 with the remove the cutout valve with the spring 39 with the emergency valve spring 40 with the valve. Suppression valve spring 41, remove the emergency valve with the 42, with the remove the O-rings 43, emergency valve, remove the suppression valve 44, with the remove the 5 O-rings 45 with the suppression valve, and remove the vent valve with assembly 46. Disassemble the vent valve with assembly 46 with the remove the O-ring 47 with the retaining ring 53, ring 48 with the O-rings 49, housing 50, seal 51, retainer 52 with the vent valve cage 54. Or remove the cutoff valve assembly 55 with the assembly cutoff valve with assembly 55 with the remove the O-ring 56 with the retaining ring 57, the retainer 58, seal 59, housing 50, 60, O-ring 68, spring 62, O-ring 63, cutoff valve with the cargo gauge 64. Remove the 4 nut 65 regulating valve spring housing 66. Remove the spring set 67 adjusting spring 68. Alright, then this shows your brake valve took out. Automatic brake valve took out. Remove the exhaust valve assembly 69. Disassemble the exhaust valve assembly 69. Remove the exhaust valve of spring 70, 71, and valve 72. Diaphragm spring 33, 73. Spring seat 74. Exhaust valve seat 75. Alright, disassemble inlet valve 76, ring 77, remove the ring regulating valve, inlet valve 78, remove the 2 O-ring 79 from the regulating valve, inlet valve, remove the retaining ring 80 from the bushing of the brake valve body 23, remove the 4 bolt and separate pipe bracket 82 with the gasket 83 with the 4 the brake valve body 23, remove the 2 strainers 84, install the 10 to 24 machine, screws the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve position 85, remove the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve piston from brake valve body 23, remove the 2 O-ring 86 from the piston, remove the cutoff valve 87, valve seat 87, check valve 88, spring 89, remove the 2 O-rings at 90 with the cutoff valve seats, and it shows this blown out view of the automatic brake valve. Disassembly continued. Remove the 6 nuts 91 relay cover to 92 with the gasket 93. Use the elongated slot to remove the diaphragm. Remove the 3 retaining bolts 94 with the 3 nuts 95 with the upper follower 96 and the diaphragm 97 with the lower follower 98. Remove the retaining ring 99 exhaust valve with assembly 100 the diaphragm assembly 101. Remove the spring 102. Assemble the exhaust valve assembly 100. Remove the O-ring 103 with the retaining ring 104 retainer 105 valve seal 106 housing 107 with the ring O-ring 108 with the spring 109 exhaust valve cage 110. Remove the retaining ring 111. Then remove the supply vane assembly 112. Disassembly supply valve with assembly 112 by O-ring, 113 retaining ring, 114 retainer, and 115 with a seal, 116 housing, 117 O-ring, 118 spring cage, 119 full from supply valve cage, 120. Alright, your cleaning inspection and repair warning. Dry clean some of the BD 680 with the toxic flame will wear protective goggles and gloves. Use only with a well ventilated area. Avoid contact with the skin and the eye with the clothes. Do not breathe the vapor. Do not use with the near open flame with excessive heat. Flashpoint 100 to 138 degrees Fahrenheit. Become the dizzy with a get fresh air medical and immediately with the contact with the eyes within. Wash your eyes and get medical aid immediately. Use the cloth dampen with a dry clean soap to remove the grease from the oil, exterior, brake valve, body, cam housing. Warning, compressed air used for the cleaning purpose of not used for 30 psi, not used to arrest air, gas, skin, using goggle, full face shield with using dry cleaning soap with the clean metal part of the dry with the compressed air. Alright, 43. Inspect metal part with the crack brakes with the other damage. Replay with the damaged rubber. Check with the spring with the have not rusted. Become with the destroyed with the taking the permanent set of the replay with the damaged spring with the refinish of the rubber. Check valve with the lapping one-piece medium weight emery paper. Warning: dry cleaning soap with the BD 680 with the toxic flammable to wear protective goggles and gloves only. Use only with a well ventilated area. Avoid contact with the skin and eye of clothing. Not breathe vapor to death. Even in your open flame with the test. Heat with you with flash point of 1 to 138 degrees Fahrenheit. Become the dizzy with the get fresh air medical aid immediately. Contact with eyes. Wash your eyes as a medical aid immediately. Compress air. Use the cleaning purpose. 19 to 30 psi. Do not compress air against the skin. Use the goggle full face shield. Caution that use metallic tools to clean chokes. Use metal tools. Change side of the chokes, resulting in the failure of the brake valve system. Note to avoid misplacement and choke with remove with the replace one choke at a plug at a time. Clean inspection repair choke plugs of the following. Remove the choke plug with the replace with the dry clean soap and inspect choke plug with the cleanliness, compress air with the remove of the foreign material with the tube with the choke with the dry clean soap with the dry compressed air with the check with the choke plug is clean. Unrestricted light coat threads with the choke plug with the consisting of the one graphite, 2 metal, 1 salt choke valve. Alright, clean inspection repair lubricate using silicone grease, lubricated oil rings, oil ring grooves, and spool valves 15, 44, 54, 64, 76, 78, 80, 8, 110, 120 bushing with a 2-inch wedge spool valve, the enter for the cleaning lint free with the remove of the excessive lubricate rubber check valve with the bypass with the box and the dry graphite shaking the box, remove the check valve with the excessive grease over the chasmos. Caution not lubricate with the new style emergency suppression can with the dam dog file rollers, which have sandblasted surfaces with the motion containing the cleaning, the dry cleaning, the rolling friction, lubricated the cam dogs with lime base grease assembly. Warning: valve assembly with the underspring load with the coffin during the assembly procedure with the no parts fly out with causing injury to personnel assembly. Supply valve with assembly 112 with the following with install seal 116 with 2 housing 117 secure with the retainer 115 install O-ring 118 on housing 117 install housing 117 with the spring cage 119 with the supply valve cage 120 with the secure with the retaining ring 114 install with the O-ring 113 on supply valve gauge 120. Install supply valve with assembly 112 with the brake valve with the body 123 secure with the retaining ring 111. Assembly the exhaust valve with assembly 100 with the following. Install valve with the valve seal 106 with the housing 107 secure with the retainer 105. And install with the O-ring 108 with the housing 107. Install with the 109 with the housing 107 with the exhaust valve cage with the 110 with the secure with the retaining ring 104 with the install with the O-ring 103 exhaust valve cage 110. Install with the diaphragm stem with the 101 with the exhaust valve with assembly 100. Install with the ring 102 with the diaphragm stem with the install with the ring 102. The diaphragm stem 101. Exhaust valve with assembly 100. Brake valve body 23. Secure with the retaining ring 99. Some with the low follower with the 98. The diaphragm 97 with the upper follower 96. Secure with the 3 nuts 95 with the 3 retaining rolls 94 with the install with the 2 brake into the brake valve body with the check with the ball socket with the diaphragm stem with the 101 elongated slot with the upper follower. Install with the gasket 93 relay valve coverage with the screw with the 6 nuts 91. Install with the 2 rings rings 90 with the cutoff valve sheet with the 87 the place with the small mound with the grease on the end with the spring 89. Install with the spring brake valve body 23. Install with the check valve with the 88 with the cutoff valve sheet 87. Install with the cutoff valve sheet with the brake valve body 23. Check for the spring 89 is in place. Install with the O-ring 86 of the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve piston 85 with install with the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve valve position, cutoff valve C, 87 the place for the 2 restrainer, 84 in pipe bracket, 82. Install with the gasket, 83 with the pipe bracket, 82 with the brake valve body, 23 with the screw with the 4 bolts, 81. Install with the retaining ring, 80 with the bushing brake of the valve body, 23. Install with the 2 O-ring, 79 with the regulating valve with the inlet valve, 78. Install regulating valve with the inlet valve with the 78 with the spring, 77 with the inlet valve with 76 with the brake valve, 23. Assembly of the exhaust valve with assembly, 69 with the following with install with the spring C, 74 with the spring, 71 exhaust valve C, 75 with the install with the diaphragm with the 73 with the follower, 72 with the exhaust valve C, 75 secure with the exhaust valve spring C with the 70 with the tightening off with the valve with the spring C with the 40 to plus or minus 5 with the pounds of torque, and install the exhaust valve with the 69 spring C, 67 and adjusting spring, 68 with the regulating valve spring housing with the 66 secure brake valve with the 23 with the 4 nuts, 65. Assembly continues. Assemble with the cutoff valve with assembly, 55 with the following with the install with the shield with the 59 with the housing, 60 with the secure with the retainer, 58 with the install the O-ring, 60 to the housing, 61 to the housing, 60 to install the spring, 62 with the housing, 60 with the cutoff valve with gauge, 64 with the secure with the retaining ring, 57 install with the O-ring, 63 and 56 cutoff valve cage, 64 install with the cutoff valve with assemblies, 55 with the brake valve with the body, 23 with the assemble the bent valve with assembly, 46 with the following install with the shield, 51 in with the housing, 50 with the secure with the retainer, 52 with the install with the O-ring with the 49 with the housing, 50 install with the spring with the 48 with the housing, 50 in the vent valve cage, 54 with the secure with the retaining ring, 53 with the install with the O-ring, 47 with the vent valve cage, 54. Install with the vent valve with assembly, 46 with the brake valve, 23 with the install with the 4 O-rings, 43 with the emergency valve, 42 with the install with the hardened type of the end of the emergency valve, with the 42 with the brake valve body with the 23 pressed into place. Install 5 O-ring with the 45 and on the suppression valve with the 44 with the install with the hardened tip of the end of the suppression valve with the 44 with the brake valve body with the 23 press in the plate with the install with the gasket, 38 with the brake valve body, 23. Install the suppression valve with the spring with the 41 emergency valve spring, 40 with the cutoff with the valve spring with 39 with the respective valve with the install with the cover with the 37 on the brake valve body, 23 with the screw with the 4 nuts, 36. Alright, install with the 1 with the cam dog, 34 with the cam pin, 35. Install with the cam pin with the pinhole with the brake body, 23 with the pin with the until with the pin, extend with the upper end of the pinhole, install with the other cam dog with the brake valve with the body with the press of the cam pin through the cam dog, secure with the 2 cylindrical spring pins, 33 with the piston camshaft, 24 with 1 inch with the into the cam housing, 22. Alright, assembly continued. 81, install with the emergency valve with the cam with the 25 with the regulating valve, 26 with the suppression valve with the cam, 27 with the vent valve with the cam, 28 with the brake valve with the body, 23 with the case with the cam shaft, 24 through the cams. Install pin, 29 with the cam housing, 22 with the install with the cam dog, 30 with the cam housing, 22 with the press of pins, and 29 with the cam dog, and install with the gasket, 2 and 31 with the groove with the valve body, with 23 with the install with the quadrants, over the 5 with on the housing, 22 with the screw with the 2 socket head screws, 4 with the brake valve body, 23 vertical position with the 2 camshaft, with the 24 with the cam housing, 22 with the handle off position with the permit with the cam dog, 30 with the dryer, the indent with the regulating valve cam, 26 with the gear with the brake valve body with the 23 with the cam housing, 22 with the 5 nuts, 21. Alright, install with the 2 springs, 20 with the 2 check valve with the 19 with the 2 spill over the check valve with the cap nut with the 17 with the gear with the 2 retaining rings, 18. Install with the 2 spill over to check valve with the cap nut 17 with the cam housing, 22 with the install with the 5 O-ring with the 16 on the cutoff valve, 15 with the mild slot with the cutoff valve with the face upward with the insert with the cutoff valve with the bottom with the cam housing, 22 with the middle with the slot over the center with the bushing install with the cutoff valve with the operating shaft with the 10 with the cam housing, 22 with the eccentric cam out with the cut valve with the operating shaft with the must get mild slot with the cutoff valve with the 15 with the top of the cutoff valve with the operating shaft with the flush insignia plate mounting of the face with the cam housing with turn and slot with the cutoff valve with the operating shaft with the end with the line up with the end with the nuts insignia plate mounting face with the cam housing, 22 with the install with the ring 99 cutoff valve with the operation shaft with the 10. Install insignia plate with 11 on the cutoff valve with the control knob with the install with the cutoff valve with the control knob with the cutoff valve with the operating shaft with the check with the cutoff valve with the control knob locks in position. Secure with the insignia plate with 11 within 3 screws, 7 the check with the cutoff valve with the control knob, 8 with the moves freely leave with the cutoff valve with the 15 with the O position. Install with the O-ring, 14 with the cutoff valve with the position with the selector plunger, 13. Alright, install with the cutoff pilot valve with the plunger, pilot valve position, selector plug, 13 with the screw with the retaining ring, 12 with the check with the circular protection with the 1 face with the cutoff pilot valve with the position. Selector plug extends into the spool valve chamber to 100. Terminally regulating valve with adjusting handle, 6 101, shuffle the handle with the 3 on the camshaft 24 with the handle all position, shift over the washer 2 with the retaining socket head, screw 1, move the handle 3, release position, test. Test the automatic brake valve in the corner with the test specification, 2646 of the automatic brake valve with the function is the following. Release position of the position automatic brake valve with the charge of the brake pipe of the brake system. Release of the automatic brake application for the position of the valve with the function is valve with the main reserve air entry for the port 30 with the flow for the valve with the 2 supply with the portion of the relay valve with the supply with the portion regulating valve, 2 spool with the suppression valve with the when where it's trapped with the spring chamber, the bowl with the emergency valve with the suppression valve spool, air pressure strap with the spring chamber, the emergency valve with the suppression valve with the patch with the wear directed with the spool. Over the car pilot valve with the 3 out with the valve with the air pressure for the underside with the emergency reservoir, car pilot valve with the air pressure relief of the piston with the valve with the unseat with the spill over check valve, A with the valve with the spool, cut pilot valve with the air trap, the equalizing reservoir, air pressure with the valve with the regulating valve, pressure setting and adjust with the turning adjusting handle, A with the opening with the supply with the C with the valve with the main air reservoir, pressure with the equalizing reservoir, changing the pressure as it follows with the air equalizing reservoir, cut valve with the equalizing air pressure for the equalizing reservoir, cut pilot valve out. Port 15 from port 15, equalizing reservoir, air pressure for the equalizing reservoir to the air gauge for the port 5. This shows your automatic brake valve, and then shows the release, minimum reduction, service blown, full suppression, handle off, and emergency. Alright, equalizing air reservoir with the air pressure for the direct with the or for the charging with the passive with the diaphragm with the regulating valve through the port 5 with the equalizing reservoir, air pressure for the direct with the outside with the relay valve with the brake diaphragm brake pipe, air pressure with the described valve with the equalizing reservoir with the air pressure outside with the relay with the valve with the diaphragm with the force of the diaphragm with the valve stem with the inward movement over the valve with the stem with the opens with the supply with the valve with the C with the main reservoir air into the brake pipe charging passage. The brake pipe charging pressure for the brake pipe cutout valve with the opens for the charging with the air pressure for the 25 psi with an open and flows around the seated end of the valve with the broken pipe at the passage for the outport 1. Brake pipe charging air pressure for the also direct with the through an orifice to interface with the relay valve and develop the counteracting force for the equalizing reservoir from the force outer face for the diaphragm with the force equal. Brake pipe charging cutout with the brake pipe air pressure for the negative with the passage of the brake valve with the spillover check valve with the B. And the bottom of the handle portion with the made available to spool with the cutout pilot valve with the A1A. The lap position is maintained as follows. When equalizing reservoir charge for the air pressure for the 15 pipe 15 with the interface with the regulating valve with the diaphragm and the equal with the adjusting spring and the tension regulating valve with the valve spool. Moves toward the adjusting spring with the move with the supply valve with the begins with the C and the stop with the charging with the equalizer reservoir. The self-overlapping with the leak with the equalizing reservoir occurred with the diaphragm pressure with the weakened with the regulator valve. Moves too slowly with the equalizing reservoir pressure brought up the back of the making adjusting spring suspension with the spring and the equalizing reservoir pressure maintaining. Brake pipe charge continue with the until with the pressure interface with the relay over the valve with the diaphragm reaction with the pressure with the equalizing reservoir control pipe outer face with the diaphragm with the valve stem with the drawn back of the wave and the supply seat with allowing it to close and stop with the brake pipe charging with the valve itself with the sleeve lapse. A leak with the brake pipe occurred with the pressure with the interface with the diaphragm with the weak with the equalizing reservoir pressure with the outer face with the diaphragm move with the relay with the valve supply with the brake pipe pressure, the once and again match of the equalizing reservoir pressure, brake pressure maintaining. Alright, your surface position, handle with the move with the release with the position with the surface position, the brake pipe with the pressure reduction is gradually improve the full surface position with the full surface of the brake pipe with the protection is obtained. The equalizing reservoir air pressure with the reduced with its valves. When handled is move with the surface with the zone with the regulating valve with the cam rotate with the lower grind with the valve with the regulating valve with the spool. Move toward the handle shaft with the actuating opens with the gauze C with the regulating valve with the weak with the adjusting spring tension for the equalizing reservoir with the flow with the equalizing reservoir regulating valve with the gauze port through the pipe with the 15 equalizing reservoir cutoff valve with the brake pipe valve with the equalizing reservoir pressure will be removed within controlled rate with the regulating valve vents. Air pressure on the regulating valve with the handle will also be reduced at the same rate with the handle movement of the surface zone with the road. The suppression valve to make the move the suppression valve with the spool inward in immediate position with the position with the passage with the port 3 air pressure will be vented with the way through the valve spool. Venting of the passage for 3 air pressure will result in the passage 7 through cutoff pilot valve with the air pressure holding the check with the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve with the remove with the check with the wheel seal. Air pressure equalizing reservoir can be toward regulating valve with exhaust with the allowing guide. Electric exhaust equalizing reservoir pressure after the brake valve handle the end for the surface zone with the equalizing reservoir cutoff valve with the not allow with the increase. Equalizing reservoir pressure as the brake handle is moving toward with the pressure handling and return to the release position. Alright, your brake pipe air pressure produces the valve with the brake pipe reduction and equalizing reservoir will be found on the outer side with the relay valve of the diaphragm and the interface with the diaphragm of the brake pipe pressure for the pressure difference with the force of the diaphragm outward with the pulling of the valve seat within it. The valve seat with the open exhaust seat with the relay valve of the brake pipe and air pressure will be found with the outward relay valve with the exhaust port with the cover of the brake pipe pressure for the production of the service rate. Brake pipe air pressure will continue with the vent until the pressure for the interface with the relay valve of the diaphragm of the brake pipe balances with the pressure for the equalizing reservoir relay valve within. Assuming the lap position, equalizing reservoir air pressure can be reduced with the step of the handle movement in about 2 psi increment until the reduction of 23-26 psi and is attained with a full service position. Lap position will be maintained as valve to add with the reduction, equalizing reservoir air pressure with the regulating valve with the exhaust for the continuing until the unpair. Sure, the valve diaphragm balance with adjusting spring tension but it has been weakened by the handle that can move movement. The valve then will move to the close to the exhaust seat with assuming the lap position. Release the servo the brake application as valves. Move the brake handle toward the release position. Cover the regulating valve with the cam with the handle with the move of the regulating valve with similarly toward the adjusting spring with the creep with the spring tension is opening of the supply seat valve. Equalizing reservoir oil change air pressure increase with the regulating valve. However, will not increase with the equalizing reservoir charge. Pipe 15 because of the check with the equalizer and cutting off the valves remain seated until the brake valve handle the release position. Your suppression position. The portion of the brake handle will provide with a reset for the safety control penalty for the application for the L for the position if it is to the right of the full surface for the position with no further reduction. Equalizing reservoir pressure for the middle will be made by the with the already full surface of the brake handle with the suppression position with the suppression valve wheel with the display with the fully inward and handle cam. Main rear air reservoir air trapped with the spring chamber with the spool with the port 3 with the consumed with the vented 3 to be vented. Main reservoir air pressure for the director for the port 26 with the suppression pipe port 8. Block over pipe with the will be the block with the valve spring valve spool suppression position. Air pressure from the port 26 with the used to suppress and safety control brake valve. The application valve with the blocking port with the 8 will reset the safety control brake application valve. Handle off the position with the is provided allow with the brake valve to be cut off with the locomotive and per trailing. And handle up position suppression valve with the position with the suppression position with the regulating valve cam however is moved to allow the regulating valve to spool. Move fully away from the adjusting spring tension with the brake valve handling position. Handle up position. Remove the equalizing reservoir air pressure. Will reduce the atmosphere. Safety control will be suppressed. Line with the brake valve to be cut out and left unintended. Alright, and that was your automatic brake valve 411. Testing.